So herderism started in Iraq about 10,000 years ago. And it was for the first time on planet Earth that animals were imprisoned for food. It was started with wild sheep, and then wild goats, and then about 2,000 years later, wild cows, and then other animals. And so it started with these animals, and it did about 7 things. I'll just quickly go through this. I'll put them all up here at once here. So basically, all these things work together. Essentially, animals were reduced. So animals went from being mysterious and powerful cohabitants of the earth with us to being mere property. So their status was massively reduced. Not only the animals that we were owning, but all the animals, because all the other animals now are seen as pests, right? They might interfere with my property, with my wealth. So we want to get rid of the wolves, get rid of the foxes, get rid of the bears, get rid of the bobcats, get rid of the prairie dogs. Right now, the USDA has a department called the Department of Wildlife Services that uses our taxpayer money, hundreds of millions of dollars every year, to do one thing: kill millions of animals. And if you go to their website and look at the list of animals that our government is killing at the behest of ranchers and farmers, there's no animal that's not being killed. I mean, literally, deer, otters, skunks, bobcats, swans, geese, eagles, starlings, any animal you can think of is targeted and killed by the thousands, by the millions. And so animal agriculture from the very beginning has been a war against nature. It's about men owning animals and owning land for their animals. And so that led, over the years, it took thousands of years. This is a slow revolution. The revolution I'm talking about is the herding revolution. The herding revolution happened 10,000 years ago, and we're in that culture. We're still in a herding culture. It never changed. And this is what happened historically. So this is something that's really critical to understand. Once we started reducing animals, and then gradually, as many centuries went by, a wealthy elite class emerged. There was never a wealthy elite class until we had animal agriculture, because gradually a certain class of men emerged who are powerful and wealthy. Why? Because they own capital. Capita is the ancient Latin word that means head. They own head of sheep and goats and cows. These are the proto-capitalists that began to dominate their entire society, the wealthy elite class. I used to teach college courses in these ancient texts, in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the Iliad, the Odyssey, the ancient Old Testament writings, the ancient Greek writings. You just read these books, and it's right there. You can read about it. There's these wealthy kings. They're dominating the political and economic and religious life of their societies, and they're powerful because they own the most livestock, which were wealth. They're the foundation of wealth. The words that we have, the word pecuniary, for example, that means wealth or money, it comes from pecos, which means cow. So these animals were the foundation for wealth. And that led directly to this one here, Gavia, the desire for more cows. This is war. There had never been war on planet Earth. But as the system matured and developed, and you had more and more powerful kings with lots of livestock, then it was this sounds familiar? War was when the rich wanted to get richer, right? That's the foundation of war. And so that was exactly what started. When a wealthy king with lots of capital, lots of livestock, saw another king with lots of capital, he said, I want to take that capital, I want to get that wealth. And so they would go and try to take it. Of course, there would be a big battle, a big war. And these wars were hideous. You don't want to read about the violence and horror of these wars. But whoever lost the war, all of the livestock became the property of the victor. Their land became the property of the victor, the water, so they could double their wealth. And the people who lost the war also became the property of the victor. So we had the beginning, because of animal agriculture, of owning animals. Then we had slavery. And slavery is not over. There's more slavery today than there was in 1865 when we had the Emancipation Proclamation. There's more slavery now and more trafficking of humans because we're still trafficking animals. We're still enslaving animals. We're still sowing the seeds of slavery. We're not going to be free of slavery if we're going to be eating enslaved animals and using products and entertainment that come from enslaved animals. So whatever we've done to animals, sooner or later we've done to each other. All of it. And we're microchipping all the animals now. Those are the seeds we're sowing. How are we going to be free if we're going to enslave animals? How are we going to live in a clean environment when we force animals to live in toxic environments? Go to any animal agriculture operation. It's ugly and toxic. They eat the most toxic food. They're the most hyper-confined. They're living in their own waste. How are we not going to live in our own waste if we're forcing billions of animals to live in their own waste? How are we going to not be obese when we're forcing all these animals into obesity? That's what we're doing. And all these animals are given special drugs and hormones and feeding schedules and antibiotics and hyper-confinement and breeding for one thing, to make them obese as fast as possible. So we're sowing obesity in billions of animals, and we think we're not going to be obese. We can't figure it out. We're so blind as a society, we don't know the basic teaching of whatever you sow, you're going to reap. That's the basic teaching in all the world wisdom traditions, karma. Whatever you sow, you will reap. All these animals have serious diseases. They all have osteoporosis because we hyper-confine them and abuse them and steal all their milk and steal all their eggs, steal all the calcium out of their bodies, steal all the minerals out of their bodies. Their bodies are breaking, their bones are breaking under them, inside them. Chickens, cows, downer cows, they have severe osteoporosis, and we get an osteoporosis epidemic. Of course. Cancer, they all have cancer. They're eating such toxic food, they're so stressed out, and we get cancer epidemic. We break down their families, and we find our families breaking down. There's no family allowed, in animal agriculture. You always steal the baby from the mother. The most hideous, demonic behavior a human being is capable of, we do it on a massive scale, and then we pretend it has no consequences. How can it have no consequences? The consequences, like Martin Luther King said, we bomb Vietnam and it explodes in our own cities as violence and poverty and destruction. What we sow, we reap. And we are so blinded by the cultural program that we don't see it. Even the PhD intelligent people have no idea. This is the most obvious thing. And yet, we're taught to just ignore systematically this fundamental connection. I cannot be an advocate for GMOs if I'm eating animal foods. The mentality of animal agriculture is the mentality of GMOs. It's a mentality of domination and exploitation of other beings and of ecosystems. So this is what developed thousands of years ago, and then we have slavery, and then the domination of the feminine. We have to understand this very clearly, that the animal agriculture is three things. Number one, you confine them, you imprison them. Number two, you kill them. But the most important thing, you can't have any of it without breeding them. It's breeding them against their will over and over again. That's the essence of animal agriculture. So it's turning the female into a mere breeder. It's reducing the sacred feminine dimension of nurturing life and bringing forth new life. There's nothing, we all know in our bones, if there's one thing we should not mess with and dominate and exploit and harm and torture and kill and destroy, it's mothers nursing their babies and protecting their babies and nurturing their babies. But animal agriculture, that's it. That's the original sin. This is it. When we started owning animals and eating, the apple is not apple in the Garden of Eden, it's meat. When we started imprisoning animals for food, this is the thing, this is the great transgression that we still have not come to terms with. And we will destroy all life on earth until we come to terms with this transgression of imprisoning animals, of impregnating them, sexually abusing them, stealing their babies and killing their babies and doing the same thing over and over again and then killing the mothers. That's the thing. So when men developed animal agriculture, they developed a way of seeing the female as merely a breeder. So women were reduced to being mere breeders, to give me what I want. And so we have to understand, essentially, that women and the domination of women and so forth is a direct result of animal agriculture. And then boys, the final thing, is we have the role model for young boys are also terribly wounded. Now the young boy has to become a hard, tough, disconnected male, capable of violence against women, capable of violence against animals and rival herders. So the natural empathy and sensitivity of boys is shut down. And there's nothing more devastating on planet Earth than hard, tough, disconnected males. We won't survive with that kind of energy and force happening. But animal agriculture requires that. It can't function without it. So this is the system that essentially animal agriculture is and evolved. And this system emerged in the Eastern Mediterranean region. It spread to the Northern Mediterranean region. It spread from there into Central Asia and into Europe, and spread from Europe into North and South America, Africa. It's still spreading today through ConAgra and Cargill and Monsanto and Kentucky Fried Chicken and Dow and Burger King and the IMF and the World Bank. And I call it the whole thing, the military, industrial, meat, medical, pharmaceutical, media, banking complex, right? We have this complex, and it's based on animal agriculture. It's based on the mentality of animal agriculture, of a few wealthy elite dominating and exploiting nature, animals, and men and women in order to concentrate wealth and power in the hands of an elite. And until we wake up and understand what's happening and how important our food is, the greatest gift anyone can give the world is to move to a plant-based way of eating for ethical reasons. Thank you. That's the greatest gift we can give to the world, the greatest gift we can give to our loved ones, to future generations, to hungry people, to slaughterhouse workers, to wildlife. That's the gift, and it's a gift we give to ourselves. It's escaping the prison.